got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3. The second factor is the services we use.
Against every weaponized agent. Instead, I can make super immune systems by strengthening the human cellular response.
Banner, I know where you're going, but manipulating the immune system is dangerous and stupid. The President's science advisors made it absolutely clear. No human subjects.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
When you consider whether or not you believe the New World Order plans to genocide away 90% of the Earth's population is a hoax or not, consider the Georgia Guidestones.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Seller and I'm a registered nurse. My specialty is forensic nursing. I expose medical crime, one misdiagnosis at a time. I help people discover the root cause of disease. I'm also a holistic nurse, so I specialize in all things natural medicine, integrative and functional medicine. Today, I have a very important message for you about vaccines containing MRC5 cell line. This is an urgent message, but before I go into it, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. When I graduated high school, I joined the United States Navy and I became a hospital corpsman. I remember injecting newborn babies with vitamin K and hepatitis B vaccine. I was 18 years old. At the time, I really didn't quite understand what I was doing. Looking back now, I also remember people leaving from boot camp on crutches after receiving hepatitis B vaccine. What we now know about vaccines is they are genetically modified organisms. They are made in a lab. They are using aborted human fetal cells. I also want to tell you that my brother, who's 18 years old, was vaccine injured. He went paralyzed from waist down after a flu shot, and none of the doctors knew what was wrong with him. He was also born with Down syndrome. So all these things compiled was very devastating for the family. And I will tell you today that these vaccines that they are making, the only thing I can think of is calling it witchcraft, medical sorcery. This is vaccine sorcery because the MRC5 cell line is actually using aborted human fetal tissue. This fetal tissue has been around since the 1960s. And I want to teach you how to read medical literature like a pro. Every vaccine insert that contains MRC5 cell line has an insert. And on that insert, it will say MRC5. The most concerning thing to me is healthcare professionals, I don't think that all of them fully understand what they're injecting. The most important message that I can tell anyone is doctors, nurses, pharmacists especially, know what you're injecting into people. An MRC5 cell line contains aborted human fetal tissue from the 1960s. But the important thing to know about it is that it is an immortalized cell line. That means continuous. Anything that divides continuously is an abnormal cell. That is cancer. The other word that is really important to know is diploid. Human diploid cells. That is human fetal tissue. Okay? Some of the vaccines that contain MRC5 cell line are the MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, Varivax, chickenpox, hepatitis A and B, Twinrix, and the poliovax. The important thing to know also is that Dr. Andrew Wakefield said we are living on a virgin soil, which means you think you have immunity to measles, mumps, or rubella, but you've never seen that because we've been given genetically modified vaccines. That's not the true measles, mumps, or rubella. So there's a report from an institution called Corvelva, and this is an institution out of Italy, and this is a report on the genome sequencing that basically they're showing. So here on the right, you have what they are considering a normal human DNA. And on the left, notice the center, how it's all like spaghetti. So this DNA that they're creating in a lab has insertions, deletions, and translocations. What that means is the normal ATCG sequence that DNA has is being rewritten. The human genome is being rewritten by scientists. And their AI God programs that they use to sequence DNA. This is basically injecting cancer into your body. So there's 1,000 large deletions, there's 10 inversions. All of this comes from the aborted human fetal cell line, the lung tissue in particular. So you can go to corvelva.it and print this out. I'm going to put a link below. Some important language. Engineered cell line. This is testing for genetic stability. Engineered cell line. In this report, it talks about basically residual DNA. It could be oncogenic. Oncogenic means cancer. That's oncogenes, including the integration and expression of uncoded oncogenes or insertional mutagenesis. Mutant, there's the word. Following DNA integration. Residual DNA might be capable of transmitting viral infections if retroviral proviruses, integrated copies of DNA virus, or extra chromosomal genomes are present. So basically, they're taking aborted human fetal cells that are cancerous and they are putting it into your vaccine. MRC5 cell line is a genetically modified cell line, but this is nothing new. That's in the insert. This is why we have cancer and autoimmune, folks. It's very important not to fall into any of the cancer vaccine scams. Vaccines are bioweapons, and the ones that contain MRC5 cell line is a whole nother level of a bioweapon. It's grown in a monkey kidney. So this report here, wow, it's such a good report. So certain cell lines with the ability to multiply indefinitely, which means they keep going. These cells have been around since the 1960s. It's in the polio vaccine. They've known that, and it's called continuous cell lines. For vaccines produced in continuous cell lines, both carcinogenic and non-carcinogenic risk assessment and risk mitigation must be performed. So that's that part of the report. The other part is, again, we're trying to rewrite the human genome. When you inject yourself, forget that. When people say that they don't want to eat genetically modified foods, that's one thing. But to understand the true mechanism of what is happening when you put a genetically modified organism into the body, that's where the cancer and the autoimmune come in. So this report, every family in the world should have this report. You'll see an unusually high incidence of MS in nurses because nurses are given the vaccines, but it's a 3 series when they wanted to push that on us. So I don't inject vaccines into myself because I know the truth about vaccines. I know what's in them. They are bioweapons, and my new term is medical sorcery. It's vaccine sorcery. This is witchcraft, okay? This is basically people doing dark things in dark labs, and the truth has always been there, but it's been suppressed. So in conclusion, we're talking about several unknown variants, and some are located in genes involving cancer. So they tell you everything in the report. Where's the other part of it? So, conclusion. So in conclusion, any vaccine that contains MRC5 cell line, professionals, doctors, nurses, please, I can't express enough how we have such a knowledge deficit in our community. And most pharmacists that I've asked aren't even really aware of MRC5 cell line or what it is to be able to explain it. But why would you inject cancer-laced vaccines into yourself, into your friends, into your family? Don't do it. As professionals that have a healthcare license, if you have a license to inject, please understand, read the inserts, do your homework and advocate for your patients, educate them about the truth about vaccines. So as a consequence, this vaccine should be considered defective and potentially dangerous for human health, in particular of the pediatric population, who is much more vulnerable and to genetic and autoimmune damage due to the immaturity of the repair systems. If you want any information on the truth about vaccines, you can go to thetruthaboutcancer.com. You can look up Dr. Andrew Wakefield. And more importantly, I encourage you to watch Vaxxed, the movie, the CDC cover-up to catastrophe. The whistleblowers have been blowing the whistle for a long time. The truth is out. MMR vaccine is a cancer-laced vaccine. It causes cancer and autoimmune. Look at the vaccine insert, read the ingredients. MRC5 cell line, human diploid, immortalized cell line, continuous cell line. That is all cancer, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Rachel Seller. You can call me the Forensic Nurse if you want to follow me for the most cutting-edge news and healthcare information, how to heal naturally. You can follow me on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, but I have my website, rachelseller.org or theforensicnurse.org. Signing off.
You shiver and twitch because you need a fix. And the more that you do, the deeper you get. But you're not alone. The devil has a hold of so many people who are in the same boat. You're under the influence of a seductive spirit, and you are the generation that God told us was sure to come. And all across the globe, troubled souls give up, imprisoned by substance. Hope and love get crushed by the chemicals in Pharmakeia. There is a void in everyone's life, and it is insistence to be satisfied. The question is, what truly fulfills and what incarcerates, intending to kill? You're under the influence of a seductive spirit, and you are the generation that God told us was sure to come. And all across the globe, troubled souls give up, imprisoned by substance. Hope and love get crushed by the chemicals in Pharmakeia. Jesus will strengthen us. Through His blood we can overcome. But it's no walk in the park when you are swimming with sharks. No, it won't be smooth sailing. Sometimes you'll feel capsized. So be sure that your heart is secured real tight, and you'll slay the Hydra in Pharmakeia. No, it won't be smooth sailing, and sometimes you'll feel capsized. So be sure that your armor is secured real tight, and you'll slay the Hydra in Pharmakeia.
The 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati make up the world's elite. They are the head of the banking systems. They are the think tanks of the world, the political groups, the educational groups. They own all mainstream media channels, and their main agenda is simple: world domination, commonly called the New World Order. They want one global village of which they control. They see us, the general public, the masses, as nothing more than a bewildered herd or cattle. Their nickname for us, the people, is the sheeple. The Rockefellers are one of the more commonly known Illuminati families, and David Rockefeller, currently the patriarch of the Rockefeller family, is an American banker and philanthropist. Not just any American banker, mind you. He, along with the Rothschilds, another Illuminati bloodline, between these two families own the entire financial banking system and thus solely control the Federal Reserve, the Rockefellers controlling America and the Rothschilds covering the finances and banks in Europe. David Rockefeller is also the founder of the Council of Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. Both of these political groups basically get together to discuss foreign policy and ultimately are responsible for deciding the future of the world, which again and again the same theme emerges: a new world order, and he makes no secret of this. David Rockefeller is quoted in his book Memoirs as saying, quote, "Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I'm proud of it." I need to move on, but if you are interested in more information about the New World Order and the Illuminati's agenda, how they plan to achieve world domination, check out the Georgia Guidestones. This is a monument erected in Elbert County, Georgia, which has their agenda engraved in their own words on each side of the 4 stone slabs in a different language. There are 10 guides, or commandments if you will, openly outlining their intentions, how they intend to reduce the world population over 80% from...
Right, me too, thank you. Exactly. One-child policy.
Ken, can you speak about your population control, saying you want to reduce the population to 95%? Extermination? You said you want a one-child policy, but you have 5 kids. Doesn't make any sense.
The youngest one is 40 years old.
All right, but understand.
The world population then was 3 million.
But that's what the Nazis did with eugenics, sir. They wanted to destroy humanity.
Pay detail.
You don't got to tell you. I'm not even doing nothing wrong. Can you tell me what I did wrong?
You don't have permission here.
Yes, I do. I'm a legitimate person. I'm on the list, so I'm not even doing nothing illegal.
You talk to the management.
All right. Ted Turner, you're an enemy of humanity, and your Nazi-like policies won't be tolerated. I don't want to give you any trouble. I'm just trying to ask my questions. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm leaving, okay? Don't worry about that. Why do you want to destroy humanity, sir? You're an enemy of humanity. Why do you support eugenics? The Nazis support eugenics too. I'm on a public sidewalk and you cannot touch me. No, this is a public sidewalk. Get it. I'm just talking to him.
I got to step to the back.
So what'd you do at the Bilderberg Group? That's where you decided your eugenics policy?
In Microsoft, Bill Gates bought $23 million of Monsanto shares. Globally, he now promotes GMOs and a vaccines collection he calls the solution for the world. Gates has been recorded explaining this solution is actually to cut the world's population.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. The density in the poor areas is greater than they can grow the food. The benefits there in terms of reducing the population growth.
The only vaccines that reduce the population, notes the site Prison Planet, are ones that sterilize people. The BBC says his foundation's funding big sterilization programs such as this one that blasts men's scrotums with ultrasound to damage the sperm. Here Gates actually calls for the so-called death panels to decide whether folks should live or whether, as he puts it, they have no benefit whatsoever.
And a lack of willingness to say, you know, is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of life for that patient, would it be better to see which ones actually have no benefit whatsoever? But that's called the death panel, and you're not supposed to have that discussion.
Anthony Gates actually brags he's doing God's work. The boss of Goldman Sachs said exactly the same thing while sending millions into starvation. What the heck is going on?
His father was one of the main grandfathers of the whole entire eugenics movement here inside the United States. And it's still going strong today.
My dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and it was very controversial.
And Bill Gates is here once again pushing the GMOs and everything else that is also reducing the population, because that's what he says. If we do a good enough job with vaccinations and everything, we'll be able to reduce the population. The polio vaccines now are the #1 cause of polio. There's no question that Bill Gates is not doing God's work. And if he is doing God's work, I would ask, which God?
Can we selectively breed superhumans? You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. Dogs really are one of humanity's best friends. They've been bred to be this way. Centuries of pruning the genetic characteristics of wolves created dog breeds, and further selective breeding amplified traits in those breeds. So much so that researchers in a project led by Durham University have found that modern dog breeds are genetically disconnected from their ancient ancestors. This sort of breeding isn't limited to dogs. Humans have bred other animals for specific traits, and numerous species of plants have also been modified to increase their yield, their resistance to disease, or just to make them more visually appealing. While this artificial pressure on natural selection has led to innovations in food, medicine, and more, it also raises one terrifying question. What if the human race decided to selectively breed itself? Here's where it gets crazy. We have, or at least groups of humans have made the attempt. This practice, known as eugenics, has a bad name nowadays, but that wasn't always the case. Sir Francis Galton, cousin of Charles Darwin, coined the term in the 1880s, taking inspiration from the Greek phrase, born well. Originally, Galton proposed using financial incentives to encourage marriages that he believed would breed smarter, healthier children. While the term may have come in the 19th century, the idea has been around since Plato, and ancient civilizations also practiced various forms of eugenics. Today, it's associated with atrocities, genocide, forced sterilization, and infanticide. But in the late 19th and early 20th century, eugenics enjoyed tremendous popular support. It was hailed as a solution for a higher quality population. Multiple U.S. states passed legislation in favor of forced sterilization, removing criminals, people with mental disorders, specific ethnic groups, and more from the reproductive pool. This nationwide movement had opponents, but they were powerless to stem the tide of support for eugenics. A poll from 1937 indicated that around 2/3 of the U.S. supported sterilization of mental defectives. Before World War II, proponents of the established U.S. eugenics movement began speaking with scientists in Europe, including Germany, about the purported benefits of this practice. The Rockefeller Institution assisted in the creation of German eugenics programs. Today, the idea of selectively breeding a human being seems appalling. It stinks of racism, murder, and cruelty. But could wide-scale eugenics programs continue in the modern age? If so, it's something they don't want you to know.